chosen ones. It's a strange moment when the world finally catches up to what your spirit already knew. You've seen it before, the calm before exposure, the subtle shift, when those who once doubted you begin to realize they were never playing chess with an ordinary soul. There's something divine about that quiet knowing, the intuition that whispers before evidence appears. Psychologists call this metacognitive awareness, the ability to recognize truths beyond conscious reasoning. Spiritually, it's discernment, God's voice speaking softly in your intuition, guiding you long before the situation unfolds. That eerie calm you feel when others plot against you isn't arrogance, it's spiritual foresight. It's the download of divine data that only those connected to higher frequencies can access. While some operate from impulse, the chosen ones operate from insight. Studies on intuition show that humans can subconsciously detect deceit through micro-expressions and emotional energy, even before facts surface. But for those walking with divine purpose, this intuition becomes amplified, a protective radar gifted by God Himself. You don't need to argue, prove, or expose. The truth has a way of surfacing, and your silence becomes your greatest revelation. That's why manipulators feel uneasy around you. Their schemes lose power the moment they meet your awareness, because your energy doesn't react, it observes. And in that stillness, everything hidden becomes clear. The story of the humble gardener mirrors this beautifully. While others rushed to flaunt their quick results, he studied the earth, the timing, and the signs. His patience was mocked, yet when the storm came, only his garden survived. Likewise, your calmness in chaos isn't weakness. It's strategy guided by grace. You weren't sleeping, you were discerning. You were aligning with divine timing, while others wasted theirs chasing validation. When you stay grounded in wisdom, you become unshakable, and those who underestimated you find themselves confronting their own pride. Proverbs 16:18 warns that pride goes before destruction. And indeed, every act of deceit eventually folds under its own weight. Now the energy has shifted. Those who once laughed are whispering. Those who once tried to manipulate your kindness now tremble at your strength. What they called naive was actually spiritual restraint. What they mistook for ignorance was divine patience. And now, as they reflect in silence, they realize you were never behind. You were just being refined. The revelation was never about exposing them. It was about confirming you. So stay composed, chosen one. The same spirit that warned you is now elevating you. They finally figured it out, but you always knew, because those guided by divine intuition are never surprised by truth. They've already seen it coming in the light. Point 1. Your silence was louder than their lies. You didn't argue, you didn't chase, you didn't try to prove anything, you just went quiet, and that silence spoke volumes. The world we live in glorifies reaction. People are conditioned to believe that loudness equals strength and silence equals weakness. But chosen ones, your silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. It was divine wisdom in action. When you chose not to engage, not to defend yourself, and not to match their energy, you didn't lose power. You reclaimed it. You understood that some battles aren't fought with words. They're won with discernment and restraint. They expected a show, a breakdown, a meltdown, some kind of emotional performance they could feed off. But when you didn't give them that satisfaction, it startled them. Your calmness became their confusion, and that's the thing about silence. It unnerves those who thrive on chaos. Narcissists, manipulators, and energy vampires depend on reaction to sustain their illusion of control. When you remain unmoved, you strip them of their favorite weapon, your attention. According to psychology, people who lack empathy or emotional maturity crave emotional responses because they validate their control. So when you stopped reacting, you silently told them, "You no longer have access to my peace." But here's where the spiritual depth lies. Your silence wasn't empty. It was filled with understanding. You had already discerned the truth before their mask fell off. The Bible says, "Be still and know that I am God." That verse isn't about passivity, it's about spiritual confidence. You knew God would reveal what needed to be seen without your interference. That's the mark of the chosen. You don't rush to prove what God himself is about to expose. When you went quiet, the divine light within you began to shine brighter, and the shadows around you could no longer hide. That calmness drove them insane because it exposed their chaos. They were used to controlling the narrative, twisting stories, and playing victim. But when you didn't react, they had to sit with themselves, and that's their greatest punishment. The truth has a way of surfacing when you stop defending lies. Spiritually, silence becomes a mirror. It reflects not just your peace, but their disorder. Your stillness becomes the stage where their own noise betrays them. God used your restraint as a spiritual weapon, revealing who they truly were to everyone watching. Even nature itself teaches this. When the water is still, it reflects clearly. When it's disturbed, everything becomes distorted. You chose stillness, and through that stillness, clarity came. Think about it. Jesus didn't defend himself against every accusation. Sometimes he remained silent, not out of fear, but because truth doesn't beg to be believed. The same principle applies to you. When you stopped explaining yourself, you allowed the truth to reveal itself in divine timing. The beauty of your silence is that it taught you mastery over your emotions, over your energy, and over your reactions. It proved that your peace is not negotiable, and it also taught others something they weren't ready to learn, that you cannot manipulate someone who knows their worth. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It was evidence that your spirit had matured beyond the need for validation. So, chosen one, don't regret going quiet. That was your breakthrough moment. The noise around you was meant to test your discernment, but you passed with grace. In your silence, God fought for you. In your calmness, truth revealed itself. And in your peace, your enemies exposed themselves. That's divine justice, quiet, precise, and powerful. You didn't lose by staying silent. You won a battle that words could never conquer. Point two, they tried to fool a prophet. They didn't realize they were dealing with someone spiritually connected. You're not just intuitive, you're divinely guided. There's a vast difference between someone who guesses and someone who knows. Chosen ones, you don't just sense things. You feel them vibrating through your spirit. You walk into a room and instantly feel the temperature of the energy shift. Before a word is spoken, your spirit already interprets the atmosphere. This isn't paranoia or imagination. It's the divine frequency you operate on. Your connection to the source gives you a kind of spiritual radar that detects deception, jealousy, and hidden motives long before they manifest in the physical. You see, most people rely on logic. They think only in terms of what they can see, touch, or hear. But the chosen ones, you've been equipped with an inner navigation system, a spiritual GPS powered by the divine. That's why when people plot, whisper, or move funny around you, You don't need evidence to know something's off. You feel it in your bones, in your chest, in that sudden drop in your energy. That's what I like to call divine alert mode. The body reacts because the soul recognizes danger before the mind can explain it. Science even backs this up. Studies on intuition show that the human body often registers emotional or energetic changes milliseconds before the conscious brain catches up. But for the spiritually connected, this happens on an entirely different level. Your spirit reads frequencies, not faces. Every dream you've had that later came true, every random thought that turned out to be a warning, none of that was coincidence. The word coincidence doesn't even exist in the chosen vocabulary. It's all confirmation. Divine timing is always at work, orchestrating your steps like a symphony you don't need to conduct because the conductor is already 3 moves ahead. They thought they were playing chess, calculating every move to outsmart you. But what they didn't understand was that your playbook was written by God Himself. You weren't reacting. You were responding to divine direction. While they strategized from ego, you operated from spirit. And that's why they could never win. It's almost poetic how God allows their plots to unfold just far enough for them to reveal themselves. And right before the trap closes, your intuition flares up, pulling you away just in time. They mistake your calmness for ignorance and your silence for weakness. But really, it's divine patience. The universe whispers in your ear when to move, when to stay, when to cut off connections, and when to trust again. Even the Bible says in Job 32:8, "But there is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding." That's divine communication, plain and simple. And isn't it funny how they always underestimate you? They assume you're naive because you don't expose what you know. But that's your secret power, discernment. You see through things without having to say a word. When you get quiet, it's not confusion, it's clarity. Your silence terrifies them because they can't tell what you're thinking. And that's exactly how spirit protects you, by cloaking your awareness in mystery. So when they thought they could manipulate or deceive you, they were really playing themselves, because while they moved pieces on a board, you were receiving divine downloads, guided by visions, dreams, and confirmations that can't be explained by logic. You are not of this world's frequency, chosen one. You're tapped into something eternal. They thought it was a game, but you were never playing. You were fulfilling prophecy. Point 3, you knew when to leave. You didn't storm out. You didn't beg for closure. You just vanished like mist at sunrise. And that's what broke them. The silence you left behind spoke louder than any words ever could. See, chosen one, there's something divine about disappearing without noise. It's not about revenge or ego. It's about alignment. You realize that peace is not found in explanations. It's found in release. While others shout, argue, and demand to be understood, you learn to let your absence do the talking. That's power. That's mastery of self. Psychologically, silence is one of the most powerful forms of communication. Studies show that when a person who once engaged suddenly withdraws, the human brain interprets that absence as rejection, loss, or unfinished business. The mind begins to obsess, searching for answers that aren't there. This is what makes your quiet departure so haunting. You didn't slam the door, you simply stopped showing up energetically. And that shift forced them to face something they had been avoiding, themselves. You see, when you left, you disrupted a pattern. You removed yourself from the loop of emotional chaos, the endless cycle of manipulation, arguments, and false apologies. Spiritually speaking, this is what ascension looks like. The moment you stopped reacting, you took your power back. It's a divine law. Energy follows attention. And when you stopped feeding their chaos with your energy, that energy had nowhere to go but back to them. That's why suddenly everything feels heavier in their world. The silence you created became a mirror reflecting their own emptiness. The irony is, they thought they were in control. They believed your emotions were a puppet they could pull at will. But while they were busy playing games, you were observing patterns, learning lessons, and preparing your exit. By the time they noticed your distance, your spirit had already outgrown the space. You had transcended the vibration of that connection. They were still speaking the language of ego, while you had moved on to the language of peace. Think about it. Disappearing without explanation unsettles people because it denies them the script they were expecting. Most people want closure not because they seek truth, but because they want control over the ending. Your silence robbed them of that. They wanted the last word, the final argument, and the satisfaction of seeing you break. But instead you left them with a void, and the human ego despises a void. It needs to fill it with blame, speculation, or self-doubt. So now they're replaying everything in their mind, twisting and turning memories, trying to figure out when they lost their grip on you. Spiritually, this kind of departure is sacred. It means you've learned detachment, the art of walking away without resentment. The universe often tests the chosen ones through people who drain, deceive, or distract them. But once you've mastered silence, you become untouchable. Silence is your shield, and peace is your proof that you've evolved. The less you react, the more you reveal your growth. Now, they're feeling the weight of everything they once projected onto you. Their own words echo back. Their own chaos sits with them. And in that stillness, they start to realize it wasn't you who needed closure, it was them. You didn't vanish to punish them. You vanished to protect your spirit. Like mist at sunrise, you dissolved into a new beginning, light and free, while they remained in the shadow of their own choices. So, chosen one, never underestimate the power of walking away in silence. You didn't lose them. They lost access to your energy, your peace, and your divine presence. And that's what truly broke them. Point 4. Their masks fell, and you didn't flinch. When their true colors finally showed, you didn't flinch. You didn't argue, you didn't shout, and you didn't even need to say, "I told you so." You simply stood still watching as the very truth you once sensed, the very energy you once discerned, revealed itself with stunning clarity. This is what separates the chosen ones from the rest. You don't rush to expose anyone because you understand that time has a divine way of unveiling what's hidden. Your silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom, and that wisdom terrifies those who live behind masks. When you operate from spiritual awareness, you begin to see through people long before they reveal themselves. Science calls it thin slicing, the subconscious ability to read people's micro-expressions, tone shifts, and body language in seconds. But the chosen ones take that further. It's not just observation, it's divine discernment. You can feel truth before it's spoken. You can sense deceit even when it's dressed in kindness. That's not paranoia, it's spiritual sensitivity, a gift that grows sharper the more you align with God's voice. And that's what unsettles people. You perceive their spirit before their actions ever catch up. When their masks finally slip, They're shocked not by what happened, but by your reaction, or rather, your lack of one. You don't explode. You don't fight for closure. You just let the revelation play out like a movie you've already seen. That calm, that quiet detachment is divine power in motion. Because when you're walking in truth, you don't need to prove anything. You know the truth always exposes itself. And God always reveals what's meant to be seen. And here's the part that cuts deep for them. They thought they could play you. They mistook your kindness for blindness and your patience for naivety. But your silence became the mirror that reflected their true nature. You didn't have to lift a finger. The more they tried to manipulate the narrative, the more their actions contradicted their words. Eventually, the truth they tried to bury came crashing to the surface, not because you dragged it out, but because energy never lies. In spiritual law, what's hidden in darkness must come to light, and your presence simply accelerated that process. Now, they're embarrassed, not because you exposed them, but because they exposed themselves while you watched in stillness. That's the haunting beauty of spiritual discernment. It humbles deceit without confrontation. Your silence, backed by divine awareness, becomes a judgment of its own. And deep down, they feel it. They realize that your insight isn't normal intuition. It's protection. God doesn't let you fall blindly into traps. He lets you see through them while pretending not to notice, because he's teaching you discernment, not revenge. Think about it. Even in nature, predators rely on surprise. But what happens when the prey sees them coming? The entire game changes. You were never prey. You were just patient. You let the mask slip naturally because you know time is the greatest revealer of truth. And that's what makes people fear you, chosen one. You don't react, you reflect, you don't expose. You observe. And in doing so, you let karma and divine timing handle what your words never could. So the next time someone's true colors appear before you, smile quietly. You're not cold. You're conscious. You're not detached. You're protected. God reveals to you what others try to hide, not to make you cynical, but to keep you aligned with truth. And the more you trust that silence, the more powerful your discernment becomes. Because in the end, your calm is their chaos, and your silence speaks louder than their entire facade ever did. Point 5, the energy shift hit them hard. Chosen ones, have you noticed how quiet it's gotten lately? That eerie silence isn't peace. It's panic, dressed as calm. The same people who once fed off your struggles, who found comfort in whispering your name in dark corners, now walk on eggshells around you. Their energy's uneasy, their smiles forced, because the spiritual table is turned. And this time, it's not in their favor. What they once dismissed as weakness, they're now recognizing as divine strength. The atmosphere shifted, not because you changed who you are, but because your vibration outgrew their frequency. Here's the thing about energy, it doesn't lie. When your spiritual frequency rises, it disrupts everything that's false around you. People who once laughed at your pain suddenly feel exposed in your presence. It's not that you said anything or sought revenge. Your light did all the talking. Spiritually, this is known as vibrational mismatch, when someone's energy is rooted in gossip, jealousy, or deceit, and yours is grounded in truth, healing, and divine purpose. There's a natural separation. They can't look you in the eyes because your aura now acts like a mirror, reflecting back everything they tried to hide. Psychologically, this also checks out. Studies show that people experience discomfort, even anxiety, around those who remind them of their guilt or hypocrisy. Their body language tightens, their tone changes, and subconsciously they start avoiding you. Spiritually, it's deeper. It's their soul recognizing that the person they once underestimated carries divine protection. That's why the gossip faded, not because they grew kinder, but because they finally realized the unseen forces that guard you. You're no longer just that person they thought they could mock or manipulate. You've become untouchable, surrounded by spiritual fire that burns away deceit. Remember this, people mocked Jesus until they saw the resurrection. They doubted prophets until their words came to pass. The same dynamic applies to the chosen ones. Your trials were never for humiliation. They were divine demonstrations. You were placed in situations that allowed others to reveal their true intentions. And now, as your energy rises, as blessings start aligning in your life, those who wronged you are feeling the weight of what they did. That uneasy silence you sense isn't coincidence, it's conviction. Spiritually, when the chosen one ascends, everything around them must recalibrate. The universe balances itself. Those who sent envy your way now feel the echo of their own energy returning to them. This is what some mystics call divine recoil. It's not punishment, it's reflection. Energy returns to its sender, multiplied by intention. And you, chosen one, have simply stepped out of that cycle. You no longer absorb their darkness because you've mastered detachment. Here's the beautiful irony. They mocked a miracle without realizing it. When they laughed at you, they were laughing in the face of divine preparation. When they gossiped, they were gossiping about God's chosen vessel. And now that your growth is undeniable, your peace, your glow, your purpose, they're left speechless. The same mouths that once spoke against you are now biting their tongues, afraid of the very power they once disrespected. So, chosen one, don't mistake their silence for sincerity. It's not peace, it's fear. It's the world realizing it played games with the divine soul. You've entered a season where your name carries weight in the spiritual realm. Keep walking in humility, but never forget. Your silence is louder than their noise, your peace is more powerful than their chaos, and your elevation is the proof that God was working the whole time. Point 6. They finally see God's hand on you. Now, it's undeniable. The evidence of divine favor is written all over your life. Every single time they tried to curse you, God flipped it and turned it into a blessing so powerful it left them speechless. What they meant for evil became the soil for your elevation. Every betrayal wasn't your breaking point. It was your redirection. It was God saying, "You've outgrown this level. Let me move you to higher ground." Every lie they whispered about you didn't destroy your name. It exposed theirs. And somehow, through all of it, you didn't just survive. You evolved. You glowed up inside and out. Your peace became louder than their rumors. Your joy became your revenge. And your resilience became your silent sermon. Let's make this clear. What's happening in your life isn't random. Spiritually speaking, when a chosen one walks in divine alignment, no curse can stick. Even ancient traditions recognize this. In the Old Testament, Balaam tried to curse the Israelites, but God intervened, saying, "You cannot curse whom I have blessed." That same principle still applies to you today. Energy moves with intention, and when your heart stays pure, even negative energy sent your way gets transmuted into light. That's the mysterious alchemy of grace. It turns every attack into advancement. Psychologists might call it post-traumatic growth, where a person emerges stronger after adversity. But those of us who walk in spirit know it's not just growth, It's divine transformation. And here's what's even more fascinating. Betrayal has a spiritual purpose. It teaches discernment. It reveals who's aligned with your destiny and who's only attracted to your light. Remember Joseph in the Bible? His brothers sold him out of jealousy, yet that very betrayal positioned him to save nations from famine. The betrayal didn't bury him, it built him. That's how God works. He uses pain as preparation. Every dagger they threw became the chisel that shaped your strength. Now let's talk about the glow-up. When your soul heals, your physical form starts reflecting that peace. Science actually supports this. Studies show that chronic stress weakens the immune system, but inner peace boosts overall health, even altering gene expression through a process called epigenetics. So when you started letting go, forgiving, meditating, praying, or just choosing not to fight battles beneath you, your body heard that peace. Your energy recalibrated. That's why you look younger, more alive, and more magnetic. You didn't just glow up, you spiritually upgraded. And now people are puzzled. How did the chosen one recover so fast? How did they rise after everything? The answer isn't hustle, it's grace. Grace is that invisible current that carries you when your strength runs out. It's not luck, it's alignment. Grace is divine favor that cannot be earned, bought, or manipulated. It's given. It's the supernatural recovery speed of the soul that knows who it belongs to. While others are trying to figure out how you bounced back, you're busy staying in gratitude, walking in peace, and minding the mission. Here's the beautiful irony. Those who plotted against you unknowingly participated in your promotion. The more they tried to tear you down, the higher you climbed. They spoke against you, but their words became the wind beneath your wings. That's the paradox of being a chosen one. Nothing wasted, nothing lost, every battle recycled into wisdom. The chosen don't just win, they transform through everything. So when people stare, confused about your strength, just smile and let them wonder. You don't owe anyone an explanation for divine favor. You've been through the fire, but you didn't burn, you were refined, and that, dear chosen one, is the proof that when grace steps in, even your scars start to shine. Point 7, you forgave them, and that's what hurt most. See, vengeance wasn't your weapon, forgiveness was. And that right there, chosen one, is what separates you from the rest of the world. Most people live by the law of retaliation. You hurt me, I'll hurt you back. But you understood that revenge keeps you tied to the same low vibration as the person who wronged you. Forgiveness, however, frees you. When you let go, you didn't do it because they deserved peace. You did it because you did. It was a declaration of spiritual sovereignty. That act of grace burned them deeper than any clever comeback or silent treatment ever could. Because forgiveness says one powerful thing. You no longer have power over me. What's fascinating is that science actually backs this up. Studies from Stanford and Harvard have shown that people who forgive experience lower blood pressure, better sleep, and reduced stress levels. It's not just a spiritual release, it's a biological upgrade. When you forgive, your brain produces more serotonin and oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals that restore inner balance. Meanwhile, resentment does the opposite. It floods your system with cortisol, the stress hormone, which slowly eats away at your peace. So, yes, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate flex of emotional intelligence and divine maturity. But here's the thing that really eats them up. Your peace after they hurt you. Because when someone tries to destroy you and you come out calmer, wiser, and more radiant, that's a mirror they can't look into. They realize they didn't just lose a person. they lost a presence. You weren't ordinary. You were sent into their life as a lesson, a mirror, maybe even a blessing they weren't ready to receive. They mistook your purity for naivety, your patience for weakness, and your love for something disposable. But when you walked away without malice, that's when the tables turned. You see, forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It transforms what it meant. It rewrites the ending. They expected you to become bitter, to crumble, to seek revenge, but you rose instead. And that unsettles them more than anything. Deep down, they know they lost something sacred, not because of what you did wrong, but because of what they couldn't do right. Love you the way your soul deserved. And now as you walk forward with peace as your crown and grace as your armor, they're left haunted by the truth. The one they hurt became the one who healed. Chosen one. The reason you always knew is because your spirit lives in alignment with divine truth. You don't need to expose anyone. God already handled it. Let them sit in their guilt, their confusion, and their regret. You keep walking in light. Keep shining. Keep glowing with that peace they can't fake. Because at the end of the day, the real power is not improving who you are. The real power is in knowing and staying silent. The truth always exposes itself. And when it does, the chosen ones are already 3 steps ahead. Stay humble, stay discerning, stay faithful. They may have fooled the world for a moment, but they couldn't fool God. And they could never fool you, the chosen one. Keep walking in your divine knowing, chosen ones. Your awareness is your armor.